Hey, what's up, everybody? It's another edition of the Northeast Connection, the NEC, and a draft edition, draft recap edition of all things NFC East as we break down what happened in Philadelphia, what happened in New York, what happened in Washington, and down in Dallas, Texas. I am joined, as always, by my boy Wesley Taylor, who just hit you up with a Cowboys draft recap. I had the Washington football team recap for you before, and we're gonna analyze all four drafts and assess who won, who came out stronger, where all these teams stand at the end of the day, and maybe even do a way too early prediction for now that we are done with free agency for the most part. We're done with the draft for the most part. We can then jump to the conclusion of who's winning this thing in 2021, 2022. So, Wes, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, doing great. Glad to be here with you, man. And this is awesome. Now we get to break down the reasons why other fans have all this amazing hype for their team. When you're looking at Philly and then look at the Giants, like, why are you guys so hype over there? Like, don't you know you guys had won the division last year? Settle down just a little bit, but this is peak hype season for everybody. Everyone's got their new favorite players and new pet cats. So it's awesome that we can kind of dive deep into these other teams, see who's going to be the hype man for this training camp or preseason. So
well, that's what's beautiful about the draft. That's what's beautiful about the draft is that everyone's hyped afterwards. Even, probably the big loser in round one, it seems like the consensus was the Raiders, right? Because they take Alex Leatherwood, a tackle who probably should have been like a mid-second round pick.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh, they lost the draft. Well, then they get Trevor Moehrig, arguably the best safety in the class in the second round, who could have been a potential top 20 pick.
Damn you.
And it's, I know he almost got to y'all in Dallas. Yeah. You guys will be chasing safeties until we are old and slow. Like
chasing safeties or denying its existence. I think it's like plausible deniability that the safety position doesn't exist within the Cowboys brass. Like
just get good enough everything else, and the safeties can just be like Jerry Jones's kids. You know, just throw them out there. You know, they'll have a Make-A-Wish safety out there at some point. Like they don't give a shit. Or you'll offer 3 first-round picks for Jamal Adams or whatever it is that you'll do. But yeah, I think, you know, but so then even the Raiders bounced back and they got a guy in the second who arguably should have been in the first. And so then it's like, all right, well, now they're hyped again. So really, even if you don't love a certain pick here and there, everyone comes out feeling pretty happy about what they got, unless you're Aaron Rodgers and you're in Green Bay. You I guess the past few years you're not too happy about that, but everyone has at least a few new toys to play with that they're excited about. So with that being said, I honestly think the NFC East had one of the stronger drafts collectively of all the divisions. I really think you routinely see these teams being mentioned in some of the stronger drafts that occurred. So we're just going to go in order of who ended up picking, not who was slotted to pick, because that changed on draft night. Dallas, you were supposed to kick us off, but in a surprising move, Dallas trades with Philly so that Philly could leapfrog from 12 to 10 to leapfrog New York at 11, who many believed wanted the Heisman Trophy winning wide receiver Devontae Smith. Explosive. He's like Deshaun Jackson without the immaturity. I mean, the guy is an absolute monster. Would have been a great fit in New York. But we said on this very podcast that Devontae Smith should be the pick for Philly, and they moved up to 10 to get him.
Yeah, they did, and they gave us a nice third-round pick for it. But it comes with a little bit of a cost. You know, Devontae Smith, he's a complete beast. You know, led the NCAA in receptions, receiving yards, receiving touchdowns. So this guy's coming in, and he can do it all. Yeah, he might be small, but that small package comes with a lot of problems, just like Jackson did. You know, for many years, he was a thorn in our side. I can imagine the same case here. And Hurts, you know, reunites with his buddy, and they're gonna have some fun down in Philly. So I think that was a strong first pick for them. Getting some offensive help, which was clearly the number one need. That receiving core needs absolute help, and Smith is the absolute perfect guy for that. I know Waddle was in the discussion. We talked about him last week, but you know, we had the Dolphins take him. So
They took him up at 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Smith is going to be great, super versatile in that offense. So we'll see how it goes. we're just
I'm with you.
the damage. The damage is minimal.
Yeah, exactly. You got to hope that if you're an opposing fan, you got to hope Jalen Hurts isn't much of anything. You got to hope that Sirianni doesn't know what he's doing up there. Which, judging from his press conferences, I think there's definitely some doubt, deserved doubt up in Philly. But Devontae Smith is a home run pick. He's a great guy, great culture guy to bring in there. I loved his answer about what he's going to do with his money and like, is he going to buy a new car? And he's got like some 90s Civic or something. He's like, yeah, it gets good gas mileage. It's like, yeah, well, that shows me that you got the right head on your shoulders. That your first thing isn't going out and buying a Benz or something. Exactly. And he's super explosive. The thing is, the only way that the frame impacts you is if you get hit. And it looks like the guy can't get hit. He's just too quick, and he's not just fast, right? Because we've had this before. John Ross was fast. How'd that go? Will Fuller is a pretty good receiver, but for the most part, he's fast. But guys like Deshaun Jackson and Devontae Smith have great footwork, great route running ability. And I honestly, even ahead of Jamar Chase and Jalen Waddle, I'd say Devontae Smith was the best route runner in the class as well. And so you're getting a guy that knows how to get himself open without always just using straight line speed, which is essential not only for protecting his body, but it's also essential for when he slows down later in his career and other people are able to catch up a bit. You can still shake him with great footwork and a great route running tree that he has developed down in Tuscaloosa. So Devontae Smith was a home run pick. But let's go through the rest of their draft. All right. Philly had some really interesting picks, and they had no shortage of needs. Right. Their offensive line still has some key players on it. And it didn't look like that last year because they dealt with so many injuries, but Lane Johnson is still one of the best in the business. There's no doubt about that. And then Brandon Brooks, he suffered a big injury last year, but he would have played a pivotal role for them. Look, they have talent on the offensive line, some other members as well that can really contribute, but nearly everybody went down last year for them. And so they go into the second round knowing that's not necessarily their number one biggest need. Cornerback probably would have been bigger.
Way bigger. They've really got no one opposite of Darius Slay right now. We'll kind of break that down with the Zach McPherson pick in the 4th round. TV from Texas Tech. They're expecting a 4th round corner to come in and play opposite the boundary. And that's going to be a really tough task for them. So if there was any second questioning of the Eagles draft, it would be, okay, you have this injury history. Jason Kelsey's possibly going to retire at center. I understand Landon Dickerson picked, so he can play a guard and you can slide him in at center if Kelsey retires, because there's a lot of questions of that. But with Sante Samuel on the board, with Kelvin Joseph on the board at their pick, I think that could have been a better pick for them, knowing that opposite Darius Slay, they didn't have anything really opposite, knowing first round they went wide receivers. So kind of if there was a question mark of the draft, that is it. And especially given Landon Dickerson's, there's no question of his talent, but the injury history, having torn ACLs back-to-back years, it's like, oof, that's
that part's tough. That's tough to get around. But I will say, if Landon Dickerson pans out, and he's another great personality guy. He was like really someone that they rallied around in Alabama. Fun guy too. If you ever watch his interviews, he's got a really fun personality. He could be, as Brian Baldinger was breaking down, and Baldy does a great job with the lines. Baldinger thought that Dickerson was the best pure offensive lineman in the draft. And while, look, injuries are going to take a hit, and positional value, being a center compared to like a left tackle, is going to knock you down a bit. I liked this pick. Honestly, they might have bigger needs. You say Asante Samuel's on the board. Obviously, his dad played in Philly for a while, had a good run there. So that would have been a nice reunion. if you think Dickerson is going to be what he was when he was healthy,
Mm-hmm.
it's a home run pick, because you have to assume that either they want to give Jalen Hurts the best possibility to succeed, or they're going to be gearing up for a run at quarterback next year.
Yeah.
And when you're gearing up for a run at quarterback, you want to make sure that everything around them is good to go. You do not want to be in a situation where you get guys like early on with Daniel Jones or with Dwayne Haskins or people like that, where the excuses come in before they even hit training camp. Like, oh, they don't have the talent around them. They don't have the right pieces. Like, you want to make sure they're protected and they got weapons.
Yep.
Clearly have weapons now. You add Devontae Smith. Miles Sanders is a pretty good running back when he's healthy. And Jalen Reagor still has the ability. We can't write him off after 1 year. So they might have some explosiveness there. But you do not want the line, if Kelsey's not going to make it another year after this.
Yeah.
You don't want that to fall apart. And Dickerson could be an absolute monster on the inside for them.
Yeah.
He's a pure technician. And people always talk about the blind side being so important, but the most communication done between the offensive line and the quarterback is between the center and the quarterback. They are the quarterback of the line.
Yeah.
And so you get a guy who has that type of personality in Dickerson. I think it could be a home run pick for them. But yes, there were other needs. The one thing I will point out about chasing needs too much, though, it's always good to address, right? It's good to address your needs, obviously. But when you're in a situation like Philly is in, or where you finish, you slipped my mind for a second, but where you just have a depleted roster, you're rebuilding, you have a brand new coach. A lot of things are in shambles in Philly right now, and they do have talent.
Yeah.
And a lot of their roster is being overlooked because of the amount of injuries they went through last year. Like, they don't have as many holes as we think they do because of those injuries that made it seem a little worse than it was. But at the same time, they're in the worst situation of any team in the NFC East. Talent-wise, leadership-wise, coaching-wise. It could be proven wrong this year, but as of now, they look like to be in the worst situation. So if you think you can get a star at one position and it's not quite as big of a need as another position, you take the better player, because no matter what, you're not gonna fill all those needs in this offseason. You're probably not gonna fill them next offseason.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, besides the Bucs last year, I don't think there's ever been a team that won a Super Bowl without having a few holes on their roster.
Yeah.
You're never going to fill them all. You just have to get the best players possible. And if they think Dickerson is anything close to what he was when he was out there playing, and he's shown quick recovery times at least, so that's positive. It could be a home run pick.
Yeah, it could be. And also, in terms of looking in the future for them as well, they do have 2 first-round picks next year, and they potentially have a third, depending on how the Carson Wentz deal goes down. So they do have some future insurance, based off, how things go this year. So depending, how this season goes for them next year, they got some time to continue that rebuild. If things continue to be a disaster, and floorboards starting to fall off the roof and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And they can use those picks to move up and get a top guy in the draft if need be. I assume their pick will still be pretty high next year. So I think they'll be an interesting trade partner.
Yeah.
Now, are there any other picks that you see throughout this draft after round 2 that really interest you out of Miami or out of Philadelphia?
Definitely Milton Williams. I was so sore about that, D tackle out of Louisiana State. This guy, man, he plays with such a great motor, great leverage. He's so powerful when you see him pushing off blocks, man. It's really hard for linemen to kind of stick with him as he's just bull rushing his way to the line. He can play at the edge. He can play in the D tackle position, and they got a stacked line with Fletcher Cox and Jason Hargrave now, and Milton Williams coming in there as well. He's got, like I said, a great motor, versatile inside and out. And I think that provides some great insurance, especially on the edge. Josh Sweat and Derek Barnett are potentially going to be free agents, and Brandon Graham is turning 33. And he's dealt with a little bit of injuries here and there. So I think this was a great pick for them to shore that defense line for them. And the Cowboys were huge on him because he combines that production and that athleticism really well together. 5.5 sacks last year. 10 of those for losses. So he's a beast, man.
10 tackles for losses.
Yeah, 10 tackles for losses. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was a great pick. And then the one I'll highlight is Kenneth Gainwell was a guy I was really interested in.
Yeah. It
Running
seems like
back out of Memphis.
Yeah, it seems like we all got our running back that can play. He could be a flex guy. Antonio Gibson last year. Then we went Tony Pollard with the Cowboys the year before that. So it's like everyone Giants next year, they're gonna get this nice guy from Memphis who can be that scat back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and Memphis is cranking him out, man. Gainwell, if you compare him with Gibson, Gainwell is a little bit smaller. He doesn't necessarily have the power that Gibson has, but he's got the explosiveness to a T. And he's really got some great cutback ability. I mean, this is a big play guy. He's a great receiver out of the backfield as well. Really dangerous on wheel routes, and very shifty. So Gainwell, I think, is actually going to factor in big there, and it gives them some insurance when Miles Sanders inevitably gets hurt again, which he seems to always do. But the thing is you look at a 5th-round pick, and it's hard to imagine a 5th-round pick displacing a tried-and-true starter. But that's where these running backs get picked. Like that. That is where you get franchise running backs in the 5th round. And I fully expect Gainwell. Not to be overly bold, but I really expect him to take over that starting role for Philly. All right, so let's go to Dallas. Dallas picked second out of the division. New York traded out of 11 after Devontae Smith was no longer there. Traded back to 20 so that Chicago could come up and get Justin Fields. And at 12, Dallas made their pick.
Yeah, so we had Michael Parsons, Penn State linebacker. He opted out last year, but if you look at his previous tape from 2019, you get a guy who is a complete animal in terms of what he can do on the field. I mean, explosive sideline to sideline. He can blitz from multiple different spots, from the Will, Sam. He could. He's pretty much been played mostly at the edge position at Penn State. If you kind of look at it, where they place him, they really designed a lot of place packages for him because you just see, tackles, just his sidestep when he comes in, he comes so fast, and he just finds a way to just right and do the subtle little move where he can just sidestep you, and you got guys. I mean, God bless you. We sent a tight end trying to block Michael Parsons off the edge. That's not going to work out. So
that's not happening.
Yeah,
that's not happening.
Yeah. So you see the athleticism combined with the production that he had at Penn State. In his measurables, he's an incredible pick. There was a lot of debate, of course, draft night, after the 2 top corners went off the board, and the Cowboys kind of had to scramble just a little bit, with those guys, Horn and Surtain off the board. But
we thought for sure Horn or Surtain was going to be there, and that just rocked. That rocked the whole NFC East, because there was some talk that it could go, Surtain to Dallas, Horn to Philly. Like we thought that both of those guys could go to the NFC East without anyone trading, and both of them were gone after pick 9. Like that really changed everyone's plans. Yeah.
Damn Broncos. Cowboys fans are gonna be saying that for a long time, for the next 5 years. Damn Broncos. But no, it shook things up, and there was debate whether Sean Slater was actually a better pick, because tackle injury history with the Cowboys, Tyron Smith and Lyle Collins both missing all of last season. There was a great question of whether you want to plug a guy in like Slater, who is a starting caliber right off the jump, can play guard or tackle. And that was a debate. But I think Micah, being the best defensive prospect on a lot of people's boards, was a great pick, knowing that the Cowboys defense was the second worst in the league in terms of rush defense, second worst in terms of points per game given up. So I think it was a great pick now that I have time to breathe and relax a little bit. I was kind of going through it emotionally at first, but I'm like, okay, play him at the edge. Let's, get this run defense even more stout. Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch are 2 problem pieces on defense. No matter how you think they might rebound, the previous 2 years has not given us much evidence to say that these guys could continue to carry the mantle, which is good now that Parsons is in the fold, because now you can actually run a lot of more schemes to each person's strengths. And we'll actually talk about the Jabril Cox pick in the 4th round, linebacker from LSU, and how he fits into that linebacker room, and allowing Dan Quinn to really be versatile with those looks. Keanu Neal coming into the box, he's definitely going to be playing more will linebacker. So they got a lot of flexibility due to this pick. Absolutely.
And Michael Parsons, the thing is, he's a tone setter. That's what that defense needed. That defense last year was lifeless. Like, they had some guys who could make plays. Allen Smith had a great year. You still have DeMarcus Lawrence, but there was just nobody that set the tone out there last year. And And DeMarcus Lawrence is a great talent, but he's not the rah-rah type. He's not the just make his presence felt on every play type of player. He's the type that will come out of nowhere and get a sack every once in a while, but he's not the ones that has people like trembling in their cleats. Because he's not like necessarily like a power player. He's a finesse type of player.
He is.
And so you get a guy like Micah Parsons. That's a guy that's going to blow up your spot every play. That's a guy that's gonna rock you if you try to block him. And you need that kind of tone setter when there are other teams in division that are really good at running the football. Antonio Gibson can, and Washington. Saquon's coming back in New York. A lot of these teams are bolstering up their offensive lines. You need somebody that can give you a good punch. So Dallas actually, for the first time in their history, spent their first 5 picks on defensive players. They knew what they wanted to target in this draft.
Yeah, exactly.
What did you think of that strategy? And then which of the remaining defensive players really stood out to you as a home run pick?
I thought it was a really good strategy. I mean, the offense really has no holes outside of the injury history that comes with the quarterback in the line position. So I think strategically targeting the defense was really smart. Where I thought it wasn't smart was when they started reaching for picks, especially with the Nashawn Wright pick, cornerback from Oregon State. A lot of people felt he could have gone in the 6th or 7th round, and I feel like Jerry Jones just handed the card to Dan Quinn. It was like, "Hey man, you want to make a pick? We got 3 of these. Here you go." Which was like, I don't know.
That's a little questionable.
Yeah, I don't know how smart that is. But
I saw Matt Miller comment. He was like, he was like, the Cowboys used 2 of their 3rd round picks on guys that I didn't have ranked in the top 250 prospects.
Shaking my head. Yeah. So, but I think honestly, the best pick out of that one, and we could say Johnson Goldson, DN out of Iowa, was a little bit of reach too. He could have gone in the 4th round, but also Digizua from UCLA, D tackle. My boy John Oning, props to him down at Dallas Morning News. He did a really great film study of Osa. And he says that UCLA really didn't maximize him to his strengths. He wasn't allowed to play more man on man. He had to play more 2-gap and took on a lot of double blockers down there at UCLA. But when we saw him at the pro day, at senior day, Senior Bowl, excuse me. he really performed really well on tape. Going against some of those other senior linemen, he really had one of the highest pass rush win rates, so to speak. I mean, I know it's like scrimmage game, so to speak, but he really showed when he gets one-on-one, he has a high level of getting off blocks. He's got a great explosive first step, plays with great leverage because he has a wrestling background. So this is a guy I think in the 3rd round who can make a good amount of noise on that defense and come in and make noise at 3 technique position. I know we drafted Neville Gallimore last year from Oklahoma, so we were bolstering that line, but he could come in and give us a little bit more umph on the run game. Now, the pick that I enjoy the most has to be Jabril Cox, and everyone and I think around the league agrees with this. I mean, tremendous value in that 4th round pick.
1st round grade.
Yep.
Yeah, 1st round grade.
Yep, and he's such a versatile coverman. He can guard tight ends, running backs with ease, slot receivers with ease. Reason why he fell, he did have surgery last year, had a hamstring injury for his pro day, and he missed that. So a lot of teams were kind of scared off. But otherwise, you're getting a guy who can cover probably at best with the top linebackers in this class. He's probably up there in terms. Best. He probably is the best one, honestly.
Yeah, he's 100% up there. He's got really long arms too, so he can reach and he kind of get his arm in there as well. He's got great size and very good instincts in terms of knowing how to rush the passer, when to be aggressive, when to kind of hold off and play it safe. And so that's a maturity level that a lot of linebackers don't have at that age, because sometimes they just come in guns a-blazing and it leaves a hole open, or sometimes they hesitate too much and they don't take that opportunity. I saw a lot of great instinct out of him at LSU, and LSU is just an extremely well coached program. Coach O knows what he's doing down there, and so you get guys that have come in very mature. You're seeing what Devin White is doing in Tampa Bay. So I think Jabril Cox was a home run pick, and I think Dallas is really preparing for life after LB and Jalen Smith, and I think they're going to have 2 guys that can take the mantle. Now, the 3rd team to pick, who was supposed to go last, but the 3rd team out of the division was Washington, picking at 19. They had a strong draft by a lot of experts' opinions. kicking it off with Jamin Davis, the ultra athletic linebacker out of Kentucky, sub 4.4 40, 234 pounds, yet 6'3". I mean, he's got all the tools, right? Only college player to have 100 tackles and 3 sacks and 3 interceptions. So he's a great coverage guy. And if you watch his tape against Florida going up against Kadarius Toney, who the Giants picked at 20, and is one of the speedier, twitchier receivers in the class. Got a lot of Tyreek Hill comps. And then Kyle Pitts, the highest graded tight end prospect in college football history. Davis is toe-to-toe with him in all of these coverage situations. And so I thought that was a home run pick because on that Redskins defense or Washington football team defense, their big hole last year was linebacker. That was honestly the biggest hole on the whole roster.
Yeah.
Like everyone wants to talk about quarterback. Fitzpatrick can at least play. You know, he's a short-term Band-Aid, but he can at least play. And there was talk about Washington moving up. I don't think they liked how much they would have had to move up. And then ultimately, the team that moved up to get Justin Fields had to trade with an NFC East team. And no one in the NFC East was about to trade with Washington so that they could get their quarterback of the future. That's not about to happen.
Yeah.
So Davis really hits the biggest need, and he has a ton of upside. I thought that was a home run for them at 19.
Yeah, I completely agree. His coverability, his sideline and sideline ability, his athleticism, his measurables, it combined all in one. I know we only have one season of tape where he really showed that, but still, based off that tape being so strong, it was like, a no-brainer pick. And then, of course, we talked about JOK from Notre Dame being a potential pick as well. But I think Jamin Davis provides you a more stout linebacker profile. And a guy who could really bolster that linebacker position next to John Bostic and Cole Holcomb for you guys.
Absolutely. No, yeah, there's still holes at linebacker, but he solves a big one. Later on in the second round, Washington took Sam Cosmi, who's a super athletic left tackle out of Texas, 3-year starter, got better every year according to Pro Football Focus, grading an 86.7 in his third year. So he really has great ability, and he's another high character guy. If you look through Washington's draft, Rivera all but one pick graded in like the 99th percentile of athleticism across all athletic traits. Like they clearly wanted athletes on this team. Cosby's another one. He might need to wait a little bit. They do have a guy, Cornelius Lucas, who can start at left tackle for a bit. And Cosby, he caught himself reaching and lunging a little bit too much in college, but that's something, hopefully they can get cleaned up. He's got the right personality. He's got the right athleticism. And oftentimes he showed great technique and a huge punch to him. He really liked to deliver the blow to defensive linemen. But the big win for Washington came in the third round when Diami Brown, the receiver out of North Carolina, who some pegged as a late first-round pick. The latest you saw him was going very early second. He falls to Washington in the middle of the third round. And that was considered one of the steals of the draft by many, many experts. And this is a guy who, another sub 4.4 receiver, 6 foot. Now Washington goes from having Terry McLaurin as their one true receiver target to now you're having McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, and Diami Brown, all of which run 4.4 or faster 40 times, all of which have great speed. Brown has an incredible ability to track the ball, particularly deep. He's a huge deep threat. Didn't show a lot of diversity in his routes, but that sounds an awful lot like another guy that Metcalf. So Metcalf was another projected first-round pick that fell to the third because they thought all he could do is run in straight lines. We're seeing how that worked out. So Metcalf is, or I should say, Brown is the pick in the third round. Is there anyone that stood out after the first for Washington for you?
So I think And this is like we're gonna go. I'm gonna take it like all the way in the back of this into the seventh round with Shake Tony from Penn State, the end.
That was a value pick for sure.
Yeah, undersized edge defender from Penn State, but super athletic, already polished as a pass rusher who can flash those effective inside moves. And I think this is the part of the draft that I really love when you can get these project guys that just like, okay, he's got the measurables. We see it on the tape. Can he all put it together? I know he's in the background and stuff around, and you're like, oh man, these guys can't make the team. But those are like kind of the favorites I really love when you got a guy who's like a project that you can really keep an eye on. And you're just seeing the notes, from the guys who are, covering the Washington football team or my team. And like, all right, he's showing some glimpses here and there. So those are the type of projects I would say that get me excited when you draft a guy with that type of profile.
Yeah, Tony was a great value pick, and they do need depth behind Chase Young and Montez Sweat.
Yep.
And I think Tony's a guy that's going to come in. And I know he's a 7th round pick. I actually think he's going to make an impact.
Nice.
Not as a star or taking over their jobs, that's for sure, but as someone that can come in positional situations because he's a very quick off the line DN. So he was another value pick for them. They had a few in this draft. And lastly, let's touch on New York, who ended up picking last at 20. What did you think of Kadarius Toney and some of their other picks?
Well, Kadarius Toney, it's definitely going to give them, outside of Galladay, in the slot, a dynamic weapon. A lot of guys comparing to Percy Harvin in terms of his athleticism, his electricity, and they kind of did have the same similar production. Toney had 12 receiving touchdowns. Harvin at his time had 13 touchdowns. Harvin had 14 and a half yards per catch at his time in Florida. Toney was a little bit under that at 13.3 yards per catch. So you kind of got the same kind of profile. And so I think, Daniel Jones definitely has all the weapons he needs to be successful. You can't.
There is no excuse for Daniel Jones at this point. You have Kadarius Toney in the slot, who could end up being one of the best slot players in the NFL. You have Kenny Galladay, a Pro Bowl level outside receiver. You have Darius Slayton, who was not far off from Terry McLaurin in terms of production, and he's only going into his 3rd year. You still have Sterling Shepard. And this probably means the end of Sterling Shepard after the end of the year.
Probably,
You have Evan Ingram at tight end, another guy who I think is a little underwhelming for his talent profile, but he's still he's better than at least half of the tight ends in the league.
Yeah.
And then, you got Saquon Barkley, who, when healthy, is, in my opinion, the most talented running back in football. And they've bolstered up the line. Andrew Thomas played great at left tackle last year. So there is no excuse for this guy not to succeed. That's what this draft was about. It was giving you no excuse.
Yeah, exactly. No excuse at all. So, he's got the weapons. They invested on the line. Last year they took 3 O linemen in that draft. So, they've surrounded him with weapons. And I think this has enough of a challenge for Daniel Jones, as also with Jason Garrett. There's questions of his offensive coordinator ability. So there's no excuse for any of those guys. And if they don't perform, both of them could be gone by next year. So, but looking into their second round, that's when they followed up with Azeez Ojulari from Georgia at the end, edge rusher, who I think is probably my favorite pick. I know a lot of people, knocked him and he fell off the board for a lot of people in the first round because of his arthritis based off the high school knee injury. But this is a guy who's an absolute stud. He's got great bend coming off the edge, and that's exactly what they need to help in. That edge room is looking real kind of slim right now, and they didn't get the production that they wanted. So I think this is a great pick for them in terms of being a guy who could come in and just give you that natural pass rush ability. So I think that was an excellent second.
He's a monster. He's a monster. He's the son of a prince. Son of a Nigerian prince, actually. So they're getting royal up in New York. But he is a beast. And honestly, there were some Giants fans that were kind of questioning the Toney pick. I honestly didn't have Toney going in the first round. I thought like it could happen because he's got rare physical traits, but I did not like his the amount of drops he had. His hands were kind of an issue. That can be shored up, but that's just not. It's not something I want to deal with a first round pick wide receiver.
With sure hands.
I didn't love that pick, but Ojulari in the second really solidified a strong start to the draft. And so I think that as you said, it's exactly what they needed opposite Leonard Williams, just to add some additional pressure. They've been missing that since Olivier Vernon left.
Yep.
And so I think that will really help shore up what was already a very strong defensive unit.
Yep.
All right, real quick. Who in the NFC East won the draft?
Won the draft. Oh man, this is tough question.
You want me to go first? I'll go first.
Yeah, go first.
All
go
right.
first. Yeah.
In my opinion, as it pains me to say, as it will always pain me to say about any team not named the Washington football team, I believe Philly really knocked the draft out of the park. I think they hit their biggest need with a bona fide superstar in the first round. I don't think anyone hit on their first round pick better than Philly did. Jamin Davis is a great talent and a position of need. He doesn't have the upside of Devontae Smith. He doesn't have the complete game-changing ability of that. I think Tony is a kind of questionable pick for New York, and Micah Parsons is a stud, but he also, I don't think, will impact the game quite as much as a guy like Devontae Smith is going to on the offensive side of the ball, as much as Parsons would on the defensive side of the ball. Maybe if Parsons was a pure edge rusher, I might change my opinion on that, but I think Devontae Smith knocks it out of the park for them. I think Dickerson out of Alabama in the second round. They got a pair of Bama guys. I think he can be a Pro Bowl center for them. I love Gainwell in the fifth. I thought that was an excellent pick. And then their corner in the fourth, the name's slipping me right now, but I remember McPherson, Zach McPherson. He plays really physical. And for all we know, he could be the answer across from Darius Slay. I think so. I really think they had. I wasn't as familiar with their later round picks, but I thought their first 5 rounds, they just absolutely crushed it.
Nice. All right, so this is like kind of choking up here, having to admit this. I would say you guys won the draft. I think John Davis is an absolute stud, who's going to make an instant impact. Especially the way that defense is set up. I love the additional pick of Sam Cosmi to come in and his ability to play left tackle, right tackle. He's pretty prepared. Yep, or guard. Yep, he's he's already resolved in his technique. I know he's got some issues that needs work on and refine, but you got your depth there. I love how you guys went back and addressed, secondary, even though that wasn't the biggest issue of need either way for you guys after signing Joe Jackson this offseason and having Fuller already in the backfield. I think he already provides great value. Nice long rangy corner. And then you talked about De'Ami Brown, another great stud, great value pick in the third round. And then you also addressed tight end as well. John Bates, Boise State tight end. I think he'd come in as well, give you some snaps. So I think you guys, honestly, in the back end, having these athletic picks and Tony and Milne from BYU, who's Wilson's favorite wide receiver. I think you guys address every single position. Now you add to your strengths, your DB room, you added to the tackle room. You guys got tight end depth, which you also need as well, and with a guy in the fourth round who can kind of be a project guy, not a guy who has high expectations. I think you guys had a great, well-rounded draft, address your needs. If you got a quarterback in there somehow in the fourth round, who was a project guy, I would have loved that even more. That didn't happen, but maybe we'll see what happens with this offseason with Aaron Rodgers,
Yeah. Just get Aaron to DC.
Yeah. So I really love you guys. I think you guys had a great, well-rounded draft. You got some projects you can be excited about in that back end of the draft too. So.
Yeah, I really think everyone did a great job, and I think Dallas going all defense was great. That offense is just loaded. Who cares? Yeah. And they're young too. Just go defense. And New York did have a strong draft. I love Aguilar in the second round, and Tony will have an impact. I didn't love him at 20, but he's not going to be someone I want to go against. That's for sure. So really, I think everyone did a great job. All right. Real quick gut check. We don't even need to go into the analysis really, because we're going to have many more podcasts between now and September. Gut feeling, who wins the division in 2021?
Once again, I'm going to go with you guys. Fitzpatrick can be like good Fitzpatrick. I think you guys definitely have all the talent you need to be the number one team you need. And I know we talk about back-to-back divisional winners, how rare that is in the NFC East. rarely do we see teams
since what, 2004 or 2003?
Yeah.
Philly.
Yeah, so the odds are not in your favor, but I think you guys, talent-wise, if you can get the quarterback play to match the talent on that team, I think you guys can go very far. Cowboys have some questions about how good that defense could be, and even when our offense was on fire last year with Dak Prescott for the first 4 games, we still went 2-2. I know we turned the ball over a lot, but there were still some issues. I think if we can upgrade, I think we can be competitive, but that wild card still remains to be seen for our team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all 3 of the Washington football team, Philadelphia Eagles, New York, or not the Philadelphia Eagles, sorry, the Dallas Cowboys, the Washington football team, New York Giants, all have an equal kind of crack at this thing. I'm going to lean towards Washington because they won the division last year despite having brand new coaching.
Yep.
So they didn't really have an offseason, which was also true of New York and Dallas, come to think of it. But they have a great culture they're building. I think they have the most complete team. And they won the division with 32nd out of 32 quarterback play collectively over the course of the year. Statistically speaking, no one had a less impactful quarterback position in the entire NFL. Ryan Fitzpatrick just has to be decent. Yeah, you don't have to be. You're not asking him to come be something he's not. He just has to be decent. Yeah, and they have loaded up at receiver, which was one of the Achilles' heels last year. They've added depth at offensive line. Sorry, and then they've even improved the defense between Davis and William Jackson III, and they're talking about bringing in some more safety help. So not to mention they lost Landon Collins and Matt Ioannidis last year, and that defense was still as good as it was. Ioannidis is arguably the second best one on the line to Chase Young. So they've got some impact coming back. I do worry about Dallas because the offense is loaded, and you're bound to hit on at least a couple of these defensive players to improve things. And New York, if Daniel Jones is even if Daniel Jones is even decent, if he's even just pretty good, I think they run away with the division because they have so much talent on that team. If Daniel Jones is pretty good, then I don't know who's beating them.
Yeah.
Well, lots to consider for the next few months, but the draft is in the books.
Yeah.
It's always a fun time, and we will break down more of this stuff coming up. I'm going to keep giving you some Washington podcasts. Wes is going to keep giving you Dallas. And we'll mix in some Philly and some New York as well from our own perspectives, as well as invite anybody who would like to contribute from the Philadelphia and New York fan bases. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes, sir.
That's right. All right. Well, Wes, it's been real.
Oh, yeah. It's been great. Great to hang out with you guys. If you guys enjoy the show, subscribe, follow us on Twitter.
I wasn't going to do it, but you went for it. That's all right. All right, man. Peace, everybody.
All right, y'all. Take care.